This is lesson 5, and it's singing the Lord's song in a strange land. Oh, heck, I could hear myself, Samson, so I thought it was on. This week's Psalms was, when I was reading them, I thought, they're basically all kind of sad ones, and they deal with a little depression, and when we go into the introduction, it gives us certain psalms, and it's basically talking about when the Israelites were conquered by Babylon and they were sent to a distant land, and their whole life was based on the temple worship. Everything was that was the center of everything. And here they find themselves in a strange land with people that they don't understand the language, strange food, strange customs, strange dress. And they wonder how these psalmists, which are supposed to be the singers in the temple, they're trying to figure out, how do you sing praises and thanksgiving and praising God when the very temple that you sang in is destroyed? The very nation that you belong to is gone, and the numbers are very few. They're scattered. A lot of them have been killed, and so as they look at this world around them, the position they find themselves is, they wonder, has God deserted them? Has God forgotten me? And there's a verse in Psalm 22:1 that, we find that Jesus Christ spoke out when he was nailed to the cross, and when he felt that God, when he said, my God, why hast thou deserted me? He was captured. He gathered everybody's sin of the whole world, and he took it upon himself to be the slain lamb. Because the law said that the wages of death is sin. The wages of sin is death, excuse me. And when he took that, then he couldn't see God. God never deserted him, but he couldn't see him. And that's the way these people felt. All right, I kind of got an introduction. Does anybody have anything else that they might want to add? Gary? Well, if you figure, the psalmist is basically what we would call the chorus group. So the psalmist is basically any song that's sang to God, either to praise Him, to ask for forgiveness, to ask for His help. See what I'm saying? You're directing it to God. That's the psalm. And it can be sung like David when he was in distress in the caves. It can be like the Israelites when they were delivered from Egypt and they were in praise. They were praising God. Or it could be when you feel like destitute, when you feel like nobody's around, when you're the only one, when you even feel like God's not there. So it's a song of help, of restoration, of giving me hope, giving me the strength, showing me that you are still with me. So it's not just a song. See what I'm saying? It's a variation of all songs. And we find that in our modern church now. You find songs like Amazing Grace. You song like the song that we just sang now, Lord, I'm Coming Home. See? So it's not a song, basically it's praises to God, or acting for help, or acting for security, or acting for hope in a hopeless situation, acting for strength when you're weak. Anybody else?
I think that's why there are so many songs, because it can relate to each one of us, different circumstances.
And another thing that's good about the Psalms is the fact that they can be 2,000 years old, but they can still encourage you today. And this, and I'm going to bring this up, but it's kind of sad because there's certain, and we all fall into this category. When I say a certain, I'm including myself. We get used to certain psalms or songs, and if they're not sang in that tradition way that we like them, all of a sudden we think that they're not praising God. See what I'm saying? And we need to be careful about that, because people praise God in the way that they feel, and they praise Him in the way that they're acquainted with their language or their style or their culture. Okay, the days of evil. Now we're on Sunday. Oh, let's see. What can we get out of this? I can say some more on it, but I want to see if somebody can put some thoughts into Sundays, the days of evil. Okay. One of the things that the psalmist was, I'm not going to say maybe curious, maybe a little bit of delusion, is the fact that there was so much evil, and these people had conquered him, and there was so much things that were going on and evil that was going on, that he wondered if God had deserted him. He wondered if God has, forgotten them, and he also wondered if there was justice, to punish evil, because it didn't seem like evil was getting the worst end of the stick, so to speak. It was the people that were trying to do good, they're trying to worship Him. They were enslaved. They were going through crises. It's a funny thing about conquerors. We like to think that because we're the United States of America, that when we conquer a country, that there's no injustice. We don't do any injustice. And every country likes to think that way. You're the conquerors, and you don't do any injustice. But what happens to the people that are conquered? We always seem to put them down. We don't really give them the justice that they really need. And it's that old saying that power corrupts. The more power corrupts totally, it's true. When you feel like you got power over somebody, or power over people, or power over nations, you feel yourself just. But if you really got to look at yourself, you can see how you put these people down, because you're the conquerors. And it's really tough not to do that. And that's what the Israelites were feeling right now. And they even got to the point where they thought that maybe there's no justice, because the evil people don't get punished.
That God had forgotten them.
Yep, God has forgotten them. Like I said, they're in a land that.
Yeah, but see, God forewarned them how many years, how many centuries. Even with Moses, there were the curses and the blessings. It was very specific. You don't follow me, something's going to happen. And it eventually did. So I struggle with them going, oh, we're going to worship Baal, we're going to do this and that, and then they're conquered. And now it's like, oh, but see, it swung them back to God, right? But it's like, no,
You know, in Eleanor, I see the same thing because we're fortunate because we see the Bible and we can see the warnings, the consequences, and the results. But then I thought, well, isn't it the same in my life? I mean, I have the Ten Commandments. I have all the rules that God tells me to keep, and I'm constantly breaking them. I don't want to, but I don't know if the devil gets the best of you, your emotions get the best of you. Something happens and you lose your temper, or you do something that you regret later on, or you don't handle a situation that you wish you could have been handled better. See what I'm saying? And
Even a murderer, okay? A murderer will go to jail, but he can find God, and that's fine. But he still has to face the
yeah,
consequences of what he did. So do we, all of us.
yeah. But what you're talking about is they knew the consequences, and so do I.
Yeah.
But let's say something happens that my emotions get so high that I kill a person. I get so angry that I kill them. I broke the commandment, thou shalt not kill. I know I'm going to have consequences to face, see? And oh, I, yes. And I know where you're coming from because you're basically telling about the relativity of one generation to another, or the relativity of one ceasing to another. But what we were getting at when we were discussing it is the fact that she knew that the Israelites, they knew right from wrong, and they refused to follow God. And that's why they were suffering the consequences of it. Yeah. No, they taught it, but they taught it because they had synagogues. They had priests that taught it to them, and I don't think it got lost. Just like me or you, we know the law, but we break the law. We can break the law, and it's our choice to do it. It isn't that we don't know; it's the fact that we choose not to. Something entices us to do something wrong. See what I'm saying? And I know a lot of attorneys, they get paid for bringing up the question, well, this person's not at fault because he was raised in a bad family. This person's not at fault because of this or because of that, you know. And that's their job. They get paid for trying to, represent the person, right or wrong. That doesn't come into their thinking. It's their job, you know.
I think that God holds us accountable for what we know. If we honestly are ignorant about something, then the Bible tells us that He blinks at our ignorance. So, we are only held accountable for what we know. Our sons and daughters are held accountable for what they know
Yes.
also. But that's not up to us to enforce them to do what they should be doing. That's not our position.
Let me ask you something. You brought up an interesting question. You're a mother. You have children. Do you teach your children to think the way you think?
I do, and I hope I better myself as I go on, especially with Marcus, because like he's 20 now. And the one thing that I did not do with my own two natural children was have worship in the morning and at night. And although we went to church every week and, they went to Sabbath school, but with Marcus, I did something different. And I didn't do it intentionally, that's just how it seemed to work out. But every morning, we would have worship
See?
And even if I was working, I would call them on my break, and we would have a prayer over the phone. You know what? He's a pretty good kid for 20 years old.
Gene, you just answered your own question. You said we shouldn't enforce our stuff into our children, and now you're telling me that you did. And we do. I don't, you know,
Yeah, but
it,
you can, if God impresses you to do something, then He's impressing you for
yeah,
a reason, not to be ignored.
I realize that, but, you know, what this psalmist is dealing with is the Israelites. And they were taught. They were taught all the way through their generation, from when they were a child to they grew up. You know, they were taught, and they were when they went to the synagogue to worship, they went through the scriptures. So they were taught, and they chose to do what was wrong because the devil enticed them to the customs of the people that was around them. You know,
Well, there were good people, but they were the minority, and they had to suffer the consequences because of the majority. You can look at Daniel, Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego. They were wonderful examples of captives, but they were godly men. So,
and
yeah.
I don't know. Like I said, I think it. You know, I know a lot of people that their folks didn't bring them up in a Christian house. You know, and they strayed kind of to the wrong way. And you know, but you know, if you do what God asks you to do, and that was bring up your child in a Christian way, you know, and that could mean, depending on what theology, whether you're Methodist, Presbyterian, Seventh Day Adventist, Catholic, see, it means a lot of different things. But basically, they all have one thing in common, and that's the Ten Commandments. That doesn't come from that doesn't come from separate theology. That comes from the Bible. So there's things there that all churches are following, or most of them. Let's put it that way.
You know that if you raise children the way the Bible literally asks you to do so, then you are doing your part. But at some point, you have to let go and let them make the decision. And if they elect not to go with what the Bible teaches, then you know there's not a lot you can do about it. You can live a life that hopefully is Christ-like, but at some point you have, like my daughter married a fellow that was not a
Whoops.
Christian, and he's in the services, and so she went his way. Well, you know what? Even though I love them in my heart, I still have to let them go the way that they want to go, because at some point you have to let go of your children, let them make their own decisions.
Yes, you do, and that's not only religion. That's in everything. You know, and there's a lot of people that can't do that. You know, their child, they think they've done something wrong, or they're going the wrong direction, whether it's the wrong business, the wrong thing, and they got to interject their ideas into their children. And I don't saying that's wrong. I'm just saying that there has to be an understanding that you're trying to do something that you think is better for them, but not trying to guide their life or take control of it. So,
But which Psalms are we in? Which Psalms is it? The 74.
but you have something to say while she's looking it up?
Well, I'm just going on what Gene said. You know, I have 3 sons, and they've all chose to what they want to do, but we don't give up on them ever. Even though they're going a different way than what you raised them to do, you never give up on, like God doesn't give up on us.
I think I have 4 children, 2 daughters, 2 sons, and my biggest problem was with my sons. You know, like you were saying, my oldest son was he was a fullback at Columbine. He was really good. He had write-ups in the paper. He got scholarships. He went to college, and in his junior year, he tore his knee completely. So his career was done. I mean, he wanted to go play in the pros. His career was done. And he struggled probably for about 10 years, because he thought to him his whole life was done. And I kept trying to tell him that's only one phase of your life. You have a whole lot of other things that you can, that are out there, and you just got to find the one that you like, the one that you want to, And he struggled. He struggled for maybe 10 years, just he'd get a job, say it was the greatest job. A month later, it was a horrible job, lousy boss. He'd quit that job, go do something else. And this thing kept repeating itself. He was in and out of a marriage and, just, you know, and, but like I said, you keep praying for them. You keep, hoping that they'll come about. And when they ask for advice, you give them the best you can do. You pray to God to get, impress yourself to give them the best advice you can give them.
You never give up on them.
Yeah, well, yeah, and because you love them and you hope, and that's what God does to you. He loves you. He never doesn't give up on you. But I'm just saying you. And then I know other people, that their parents, for some reason or another, they felt downcast, that the government was down on them, people were down on them, and they put this rebellious sense into their kids. And their kids are kind of living their parents' life all over again in bitterness, rebellion, unhappiness. You know what I mean? And you wonder, kind of, I don't know. And it's really strange because it only takes a simple decision on a parent's part, and it could, if you don't pray for guidance, if you don't pray for some heavenly power to guide you, then you could guide them in the wrong direction. You could put thoughts that are not good for them and cause them more damage. See what I'm saying? It's a big responsibility to be a parent. I'm glad my kids are grown. I really am. I told my son, you gave me the white hair. I said, and I said, that kid was something else. I love the guy, but he was just something else. Eleanor, did you find it? Oh, I thought you were trying to find a psalm there.
But I do have a comment. I want to say maybe 2 years ago, we went up to Glacier View for a women's study. And have you all read Psalms 137? It is crazy. And it's about being in Babylon, and it's harsh. And to me, it's not a song, but it's just frustration. Like the last verse, happy the ones who takes and dashes your little ones against the rock. And she did a study of that the whole weekend, and it was just
Gross.
She took it verse by verse, and it was like, wow, it's heavy duty. So, yeah.
And that's what I was saying about the conquerors. For some reason, we're really, I don't know what takes over you, that you feel superior. And I'll give you an example. When I was in Vietnam, we captured this village, and stuff like that. And there was this little old man. It was, you see Miss Vin? He was an old guy about her age, could hardly walk. And we got this 18-year-old private that's jabbing him in the back with a rifle, because he ain't walking fast enough. And one of the other soldiers that was right next to him, boy, he really scolded him. He says, that's not the right thing to do. And this guy is the one that scolded him, he's a Jewish guy, and we became very good friends, But he took very offense to that. You don't treat old people like that. That's the way he was brought up. Man, you don't stand there jabbing this old man with your rifle barrel, in the back. The guy could barely walk, and he's poking him. And that's what I mean, that I guess what I'm trying to say is, if we're not put in a situation, then we can't say we're going to be always good. And you can't condemn somebody and say they're always bad because you haven't been in that situation. And I'm just saying, when you are the conqueror, it's really difficult not to be kind and merciful and to see in the other person's point of view, or to seeing, just like that. That guy had nothing to do with that war. He was just an old man trying to live out his life the best he could. And here he's getting beat up. See what I'm saying? Doesn't make sense. And and I guess that's the way the Israelites felt it, when they were captors in Babylon. Like that, here they were. They had their own nation. They had their own freedom. They could do as they wished, you know. And maybe that's what got them in trouble because, like you said, God gave them the rules. He says, "Well, I'll bless you, but I'm your only God. You don't make idols. You don't worship this. You worship in the temple." And they refused to do all of that. And I think a lot of it has to do with money because they said they would love to trade with them, sell them goods, and make money. He said, worship on the Sabbath, and a lot of them were selling. They're doing their business on the Sabbath. See, so. There's the same things then as it is now. There's money, power, position. All these things come into play and they're making a decision. It's easier for us old people because we already went through that. There's nothing we're really looking forward to, except maybe an easy death, no pain, just I go to sleep, eat my ice cream, my strawberry ice cream, go to sleep, and then I'll wake up. But somebody says, "Well, I'm going to give you all the wealth in the world." You say, "What the heck am I going to do with it?" You know. But you tell a 21-year-old that, and boy, boom, their eyes light up. I got to hear more of this. So,
Well, there is a little different take on this on a cultural and on a culture side because the Israelites are right-handed people. A lot of people, they were taught when they take something from somebody, they always use the right hand. The left hand, they got slapped. And they were forced to become right-handed people. Now, when the generation changed, all of a sudden, did you teach your kids to be left-handed or right-handed? A lot of them make their decision. No. But in their culture, they were not.
well, yeah, and that's true. And see, and that has nothing to do with God. It has something to do with tradition. And in our case, and maybe it was their case, the books are written a certain way, you write a certain way, and it's a lot easier to write right-handed than it is left-handed because you cover up, when you write left-handed, you cover up what you're writing.
I'm left-handed, so I don't have any trouble.
Yeah, well, yeah, because you're used to it. But you know what I'm getting at? Like my oldest son is left-handed, and when he he had trouble at school because they're teaching him A, B, C's. Well, he writes an A, and then he goes to the B, and he can't see the A. He goes to the C because your hand covers it up. See, you're writing like this, and here's the line. See what I'm saying? So what do you do, like this? See what I'm saying?
And I also had teachers hit my hand too.
Huh?
I also had teachers hit my hand.
Yeah.
So use the other
Yeah,
hand
because they're trying to get you to do right-handed, and you're right. It's a tradition, and he's right. Huh?
They did teach my son to write. They did teach my son to write right-handed. He's left-handed.
Right.
Pretty much both hands. He's left-handed and he writes right-handed and draws. He's good with his right hand.
See, and I'm kind of dexter because I do some things right-hand and some things left-hand, and so uh, I don't know. And then they're also called left eye and right eye. Did you know that? Yeah, when you're in the military, they have to find out if you're left eye or right eye, because when you're aiming at a target, it'll put you way off if you're aiming at it with the wrong eye.
I used to be a left-handed person.
Yeah. But like
my grandfather, their generation, they couldn't do something with your left hand.
and I can't
Because they said that's more disrespect. That was their culture. I don't question about it, but So kind of friendly. So I use almost both of my hands. When I play soccer, I use my left leg.
No, are you left-handed, Eleanor?
Oh, no, I'm right-handed, but in Germany, it was the same thing. My uncle and my grandmother were left-handed, but you had to write to your right
Yeah, somebody.
in the old days.
So when did they start, I mean, when did they end not teaching you to,
Like what now?
on your, if you're left-handed, when did they, stop teaching you to?
Well, they try to they don't stop teaching you to be. What they want to do is try to teach you to be right-handed because books. See how your book's written? You're written like that. Well, if right-handed, see you're writing and you can see as you're writing. Left-handed, like this. See, you can't see what you wrote. See what I'm saying?
My sister and my cousin are left-handed.
So you have to, in your mind. Yeah. So in your mind, I think what you have to do if you're left-handed is remember what you wrote. So well, see what I'm saying? Like you say, today I'm going to go to church, right? Well, if you don't, you start today, I'm going, but then your hand covers today I'm going, and now you're going to get to church. See what I'm saying? So in your mind, you said today I'm going, and then you go to church and you continue on. Or say you're writing something. Let's say you're going to write Shirley's phone number, and you're left-handed, and then somebody calls your attention, and you turn around, and that like that, and well, you covered up. You go back, your hand is still there, and you go down, and you say, "Why was I putting this number down?" So you got to take your hand. Oh yes, for Shirley. See what I'm saying?
I don't have that problem.
Well, no, you don't, but a lot of people do, especially when they're young, when they're trying to teach them the ABCs
Well, I cringe.
and stuff like that. See, you've been dealing with them for 80 years, 90 now. See what I'm saying? So, heck, they don't have to tell you nothing. I mean, it's
Slow learner.
yeah, yeah. But anyway, so so like I said, there's a so. Well, I don't think so. I mean, when I look at this thing, it says these prayers for salvation. I can write that with my right hand, and it's not upside down. I can write it just the way the book says. So, see what I'm saying? But anyway, I don't know how we got to this subject, but I think it's time to get out. Let's go to Mondays at huh?
Next song.
Okay, so on Mondays it's called At Death Door. And like I said, you got to remember that the psalmists are basically writing down songs. It's like the slave guy that wrote down Amazing Grace, and other psalmists that write things of praise, like what's the one we just saw? Coming Home. Maybe that was maybe the guy that wrote it was sick, terminal. You know what I mean? And has been suffering, and boy, he's looking to coming home. I'm coming home. So you know, you got you got to put it in the proper perspective that we're studying people that wrote songs, and we're kind of going, okay, we're looking at a day of captivity, a day that the temple was destroyed. Everything that they put their trust in is kind of destroyed and gone. They're not even in a country where they can speak to their captors because they speak a different language. They have a different tradition and everything. So, anyway, it's at death's door. This one here. What is one of the principles of this that the psalmist is, or that we're trying to see in this psalm? Okay, I'm going to give you one. It says that God's children, just because they're God's children, they're not exempt from suffering in this world. And as a matter of fact, it tells you even the opposite, doesn't it? Because it says, because the world is, majority is evil and in Satan's control, that if you're with God, you're going to wind up with a lot of suffering. Maybe not. What am I going to say? Mortal suffering, where you're going to face death. You may have to, but that doesn't say all of us are going to. It just means that maybe you have friends that maybe you start going to church on the Sabbath and they ridicule you because they say, "Hey, what's the difference? Any day's a good day to worship God." You know, and they say, as a matter of fact, I worship God every day because I pray to every day. So, what is so important about going to church on the Sabbath? So they tend to, and then I've had people say, "Well, that's a sect." You know, that's bad. They don't want they don't want to deal with somebody that's in a sect.
Well, Christ was persecuted. So do we think we are better than Christ? The thing is that
Well, and there's another.
he did say that we would know sorrow. So
See, Gina, there's another. Let me pray the advocate here. And if you said that to me and I wasn't a Christian, I could say yes. But you say God came to save us, so therefore He had to suffer. I'm not saving anybody, so why am I suffering?
Yeah.
See what I'm saying? That's a legit argument in a way, because God did come to save, and God did come to die and to suffer, because He takes upon our sins, and that's the legitimate offer, an argument. But see what I'm saying? I think one of the best examples that I found in the Bible is when they asked, I can't remember where it was, I think they asked Jesus that, and He said, the rain falls on the evil as well as the good. God gives to everybody. He doesn't give you something because you're good, and He doesn't take everything away from you because you're bad. You ever thought about that? That's kind of perplexing, right? I often wondered about that. When I was in the service, I was not good. I got a little. I'm going to have the sermon, and I'm going to kind of go over that. But I tended to want to be more evil than good. I wanted to be more bad than good. Because if I'm going to be bad, why be bad halfway? Be bad all the way. See what I'm saying? But because I was introduced to a Christian faith, I wasn't happy. I wasn't happy doing bad things. I wasn't happy, doing things like that. And so there was a struggle there. There was a big struggle there. But in that struggle, God kept me safe. I've been shot at and never hit. I've been hand grenaded. It messed up my hearing. I can't hear. And I'm partially a little bit blind in my right eye. But still, I'm wondering to myself, I have a friend here. He's got a wife and a child that he's never seen, and he got killed. Now, why am I still alive? See what I'm saying? God does good things to people that do bad things because I think He wants you to draw them to Him.
I had someone ask that in a class that I was teaching in Aiken, South Carolina. How come bad people excel and good people do not? And the thought pattern just came into my head, so I had to be God to put it there. And I said, because their rewards are here on earth, and our reward is in heaven. So we need to keep that in mind, that our reward is not here on this earth, it's in heaven.
And that's true because at any point in time, that evil person can change. And we don't know. We honestly don't know if that'll happen. And another thing is too, Gene, is another thing that's a little perplexing is God disciplines His people, and He also blesses His people with evil people. You know what I mean? He uses maybe powers that don't believe in God to rescue a weaker nation that believes in God from an oppressor. Ian's kind of.
I'm thinking too that God in his wisdom, he knows each one of us.
Well, yeah.
And when we have illnesses, I know in my case, if you're ill or you know someone else is ill, you become closer to God because you pray more earnestly because you want that person to get better. So I think he allows these things to happen sometimes because he kind of wake us up and say, okay, I'm here. Ask me.
And then let's look at another advantage to you maybe is the fact that when you see somebody else suffering that way, you can give them some pretty good advice. That doesn't, we don't know the circumstances of the other person because they never really give you them all. They give you a little bit. You can see some of the things. So you can give them some advice. But, whether they take it or they don't is really up to them. And we shouldn't put them down if they don't take it because you really don't know. That might help them a little bit in a little situation where maybe some other piece of information for someone else helps them a little more. But see, it keeps going, keeps building a little hope. And that's really what you're looking for, right? When they call, in the Bible, they call depression as being in a pit that you can't get out. And when you're in the pit and you can't get out, a lot of people, well, I'm not going to say that because I don't know. But I'm going to say from my experience, what you're praying for is for hope. Let's say, God, give me a little hope today. Can I see myself getting just a tiny bit better? And then tomorrow's the same way. Do you see me get a tiny bit better? You know what I'm saying? And it gives you hope, and you start kind of coming out of that thing. But you don't see it. You don't see yourself coming up. You're still depressed. You're still hurting. But you just want a glimmer of hope. Shirley.
Becomes acquainted with you, how do you feel and what does that rub off on you, their bad things? Or you try to correct this other person? That's kind of hard too.
Say it to me again. I guess I lost the train of thought.
What happens to you? How do you feel? And what do you do if you are acquainted and maybe become friends with a person who is bad? What do you do?
Well, Shirley, I can't tell. I wish I could tell you. I wish I was that wise, and I wish I could tell you. Well, if you do this, everything's going to be fine. But I don't know.
Everybody reacts differently, I think.
Yes, and I think.
I really like this person because, in a way, he or she is nice.
I think
But not too nice, not very nice.
I think the number one thing, if you really and truly want to help somebody, is find out why. Why, like you said, they're unhappy or depressed or angry. You got to find the cause, or try to. A lot of people ain't going to tell you. You got to really warm up to them, really be good friends to them, and then they give you bits and pieces, And then you're not going to solve their problem. You can only help them a little bit, and they're the ones that have to eventually solve their own problem.
And that's when you ask God for guidance.
Yes.
Help me, God. Yeah.
And like she said, not just because it worked in this friend doesn't mean it's going to work with that friend. You can't think of yourself as an expert, and that's a mistake we all make sometimes. And especially with my kids, they do something, and first thing I want to do is tell them, hey, that's stupid. I tried that, and that doesn't work. Well, maybe it isn't stupid for them, because maybe it will work for them. You know what I mean? You got to let them. You just got to let them. I wanted my kid to be, my youngest son, I kept trying to tell him, oh, why don't you be a pilot? They got this thing in college, go be a pilot. He didn't want to be a pilot. He wanted to be an actor, so that's what he is, an actor. He's a starving actor. I got to help him. He's not making any money. He's barely making a living. His wife works, and so they're doing okay. They got 5 kids. I tell Nancy, I say, well, we help them a little bit, my daughters were different. My daughter said, hey, I'm going to go to college. I'm going to be a lawyer. She became a lawyer. She's a judge now, and she's doing good. You know, my daughters all had a dream, and they went their way, and they did. But my boys, like I said, my goodness. You know, you think a father would have a good relationship with their sons. And I have a better relationship with my daughters. My boys love me. I respect them. They respect me. But they were constantly in trouble. I mean,
Yes, to address Shirley's question, I would say be yourself. If you have the love of God in you, you can be yourself. And also remember, we are the only Bible that people may ever read. And you don't need to push yourself on people when you have God. The people will open it to you.
you know what? You got to be careful with that too. Because there was a study made, and they were saying that why do pastors' sons and daughter become so rebellious when they're brought up in the church? See what I'm saying? You have to be careful. Don't make absolutes. So, you know, we don't know of another person's weakness. We don't know of their strength. We only know our weaknesses and strengths of ourselves if we're honest with ourselves. A lot of people aren't honest with themselves. They believe they're stronger than they are, or they believe they're weaker than they are. This life is complicated, I'm telling you. The older I get, the more I don't understand it. But anyway, let's get back to Monday. You know, and we're kind of going over some of the feelings that they might have felt. See what I'm saying? You know, they're in a foreign country. They lost kind of their anchor point because, you know, they believe so much that the temple